Okay, so our vision is to help students and researchers satisfy their information needs through training and practice. We only aim at providing lectures like we are doing. Fortunately, this is the second one. And the responses from the first were encouraging. And so we hope to continue so that at least we all can understand and appreciate the research process. We don't in any way intend carrying out researches for students or researchers. No, we only want to facilitate the process. We want to share the little we have also gathered along the line with researchers and students so that life gets better for everybody. If along the line you have anything you want us to look out for or to help you on, fine, but we don't intend carrying out your researches for you. That is something I really want everybody to understand. It said you should teach people to fish and you don't give them fish. So we are going to teach how to fish, but we are not going to give you the fish. Because if you understand the process, you realize that you'll be able to do more. And in future, we can even invite you on to also. Yes.
Doc, please, hello, Doc.
Yes, please.
Dr. Antonia.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi. Oh, I have a feedback. The line is very
Doc,
bad.
yeah, your line is very bad, very, very bad.
Very bad.
Very, very, very bad.
Okay, then just give me some few minutes. Let me change my position and then
Okay.
we see. Yes, if not, I'll be forced to do it on my phone. No matter what, we'll go through the session. So let me just change my position and then.
That's all right. That's all right. Okay.
Okay, hello. Please, I've
Hi,
changed.
Doc.
Yes, is it okay now?
Huh?
Hello.
Yeah, it's better.
It's
It's
okay
better.
now.
Okay, thank God. Thank God. Sorry for the interruption this morning. So we are going straight into the session. Like I was saying, we don't intend carrying out researches, but we intend helping with the research process so that everybody understands, and then we can do well with our studies. So we'll be providing training as and when we want to do it in a timely manner. We are planning one very soon for next month, early next month. That will be our third session. And then we would go through the entire process. We started with an overview of the research method or overview of research itself. We'll look at how to select appropriate methodologies. We'll provide some guidelines when it comes to the analysis of our data, and then also how to go about writing our research reports. We hope to also provide some reference management support, and that we'll be doing very soon in our next session. So today we want to look at an introduction to literature review, the various types of literature reviews we can have, how we are going to write it, and then we'll look at ethics of writing, especially when it comes to plagiarism, and then how to avoid plagiarism. And then I'll end with a short intro to referencing and citation. Actually, I will delve deep into referencing and citation in our next session. That will be a very practical session. So hopefully we'll be able to achieve these objectives for this morning. Okay. So I can see more people joining in, but we'll start and then along the line, I'll give a summary so that anyone who joins in late can understand what we are talking about. So this morning, like I already said, we want to find out what the literature review is all about and then how to go about writing it. So if we want to ask, what's a literature review? It's actually a survey, okay, of materials. That's articles. It could be from books. You can get your information from books, from articles, etc., written on your topic. So whatever topic you have decided to write on, you need materials. And then that will help you to know what has been discussed about your topic. It will also give you a present perspective. That is what people are talking about now, what the discourse is now. And then that would also provide you with an avenue of knowing the gaps in that particular literature or in that particular subject area so that your research can fill in that gap. And that also gives us the opportunity of originality, which I talked about the last time. At least you can replicate research, yes, but your research should also contribute a little to the discourse. So if you are able to run or do a very good literature review, you realize you're able to identify the gaps. Sometimes gaps in methodologies used, sometimes even gaps in the theories. And then you are able to fill in those gaps with your existing or your current research. And then the literature review also serves as a benchmark or a standard against which you are going to compare your findings so that you can say, okay, over the years, probably this concept has evolved in this way, or your research at the end of the day can reinforce some assertions or some ideas that have come up in past researches. So the literature review actually helps you to position your current study in the discourse. It helps you position your study. It helps you evaluate sometimes also what is in your area, it's in your field. So writing a good literature review gives you enough evidence, and then it also provides a good significance for your current study. So there are various types of literature reviews, And before I continue, you know, the literature review emanates from your objectives. The objectives you set out to achieve, they would provide you with the topics under which you carry out your literature review. So if I want to do something on, say, change management, my objectives are going to direct me even as to the topics and the subtopics to have in my literature review. I'll talk a little into detail when I get there. But then there are various types of literature reviews we can have, or we can write as students and researchers. We have the traditional or the narrative review, which we do most often. You can have an argumentative review. You can have a historical or a chronological review. And then we have the methodological review. You can also have a systematic, a theoretical, or an integrative review. So what's a traditional or what's the narrative review? And then that's what we do most often as students. And then we draw, like I said, it draws attention to our components such as objectives, methodologies, etc., without necessarily critiquing the article. So let's say I'm writing on change management. I come across or retrieve 10 articles on change management. I'm only going to provide information, that is what the articles or what the researchers are talking about. So probably I'm going to talk about the objectives, I'll talk about the methodologies used, and then I'll probably talk about one or two findings, not necessarily critiquing. So I would not add my voice to it. I may not say that, okay, probably they used, let's say, quantitative, but I think they should have used maybe the mixed method. No. The traditional literature review is more of a narrative. We are just given information on what has been said, what has been done. And this is something most of us do. We don't really critique the articles we come across. We don't critique the information we come across. We give kind of a summary. The traditional or narrative gives a summary of the article, and then you put it into a coherent whole, and then you present it. We also have the argumentative review. This time you look at critiquing the article or the information you have come across. So this, especially when it comes to your theories, you can use the argumentative review. The voice of the researcher is heard because you are trying to argue your points out, and it gives you an opportunity to bring out the gap in which you want to fill, because you are arguing your case out. You are arguing out the fact that there are some gaps that need to be filled. But the only thing you have to be careful with as a researcher is not to put yourself in the study. You have to avoid biases. You don't go in with your own ideas and ideologies. If not, you realize that you are going to give some biases along the line. It should be objective. As we know, as researchers, we need to be very, very objective. You always have to take yourself out of the study. And then we have the historical or the chronological review. And then that does very well when you are tracing the development of, let's say, concepts, topics, etc. So example, if I want to trace, let's say, computers, the use of computers, or have an overview of how computers came about, it means I'm going to talk about first generation computers, second generation, etc., etc. So that gives a kind of a historical view to our study. And then at the end of the day, you zoom in into what you are talking about. This feature comes in most of the time, almost in every research, because at least you have to give a history of maybe the concept or how your concept or phenomenon has evolved over the years, so that you're able to position your study proper in the discourse. And then we have the methodological review. Here you try to critique methods that have been used by several researchers. And this also provides you an avenue for originality. So that, let's say today I'm going to use a lot of change management. That's the concept I want us to look at. So let's say I've downloaded 10 articles on change management, and all the researchers seem to be using quantitative, I can critique and say that, okay, doing a mixed method will bring in more information, because you realize that with the quantitative methods, especially when it comes to data collection, most of it we just take. The respondent doesn't have the opportunity of sharing their view that much. So why don't I bring in a qualitative aspect where my interviewees will be able to express themselves further, which would enhance the information I'm going to gather from them. So it gives you an opportunity to sometimes bring out the gaps in your field or in your subject area so that you can fill it in. So like I'm saying, I download 10 articles on change management, and one can even suggest that, oh, this was done using the quantitative, so another researcher can try the qualitative. It gives me an avenue, it gives me a gap to fill. So as we write our reviews, as we read through the articles, let us try and do some methodological review as well. And then we have the systematic, which is very much like the narrative. We don't really do so much. It just looks at a cause and effect. Okay, so most often you look at the extent to which something is influencing another. So the extent to which maybe resistance to change is influencing how people are accepting change in the organization. And then sometimes you can do your critiques, but most often you realize that we just go systematically without doing much of the criticisms or criticizing the works that have been done. And then we have the theoretical review, especially when it comes to reviewing our theories. And then this also provides us with the avenue of bringing out, if I should say, shortfalls in some of our theories. It gives you the avenue of also improving upon theories. So a theory like maybe change management, for instance, we have different models. You can critique the theories, and then you would come up with either new models or additions to what people have done. So critiquing the theory also gives us opportunities of adding something original to the discourse. I did a current study on personal information management, and there were 5 processes. But critiquing the theories provided, I felt, okay, there could be an added one. We could add one to it. So I have added one, but I'm yet to test and see. So if you're able to review your literature theories very well, it gives you an avenue for originality. And then we have the integrative review, and that I think is what we should be doing more, because you are able to synthesize, you critique. It means you are able to do the narrative, you are doing the argumentative as well, you are able to review theories, you do some methodological reviews, and then at the end of the day, you realize that you are able to position your work very well in the discourse. You're able to position your current study, and it gives you so many avenues for originality. You would end up having some originality when it comes to methodology, when it comes to maybe data collection and all that. So I would encourage that when it comes to literature review, let's try the integrative review. You do your summaries, yes. You do the chronological, that is your concept. Try and put it in a chronological or historical perspective. And then you can also do some methodological reviews so that you'd be able to add more to the discourse. So these are the different types of literature review writing. If you want to write, these are the different types you can fall on. And then I want us to look at the writing process itself. Now I have a topic. I'm writing on change management. How do I go about it? First of all, you need to search for relevant information, relevant literature. Where am I going to search? It could be from books, it could be from journals. Some of us have databases in our institutions. You can search there. You can just use Google's Scholar to also search. At the end of the day, if I'm able to search for literature, then you evaluate your sources. And then you build themes, you build
What do you mean by
Identify the gaps. And then you outline your structure.
so this is
That
it.
means
You look at
which
the
one am I
application,
going to use? Am I
you
going to
download
use an integrative review? Am I going to
the
do
PDF, you download it.
logical, historical, etc.?
So
You
what doing like
decide,
PDF is absolute
and
scholarship.
then you write your literature review proper. And then you write your literature review.
There's full scholarship. I don't know.
Hello, Doc.
Yes, please.
I think there was some feedback behind. So if we
Yes,
can
it
mute.
seems, okay, sure. Let me mute the person.
Hmm.
I assume someone is talking. Okay, and then I realized that our time will be running off also very soon. So please, if it goes off, just join in again. We just take it as a commercial break and then we join in. So like
Okay.
I was saying, if I want to search for literature, like I said, we can use our databases. Sometimes to our library catalogs provide us with enough information. It tells us what our libraries have for us. So these are some databases I've listed here: JSTOR, EBSCOhost, Emerald. We have a lot of them. It depends on your institution. And then I want us to use or learn a little bit about using the Boolean logic or Boolean operators in searching for our information. But I have just about a minute for this session to end, so I'll not go into it because it's quite lengthy. If we have any questions so far, we can just put it up as the time is almost up for the first session. So I'll take a break here, and then if there is anything for me to address, let's address it now, please. Amina, please, I can read you said the voice is not clear. Please, are we okay now? If Amina is around, I hope it's better now. Continue, like I said, searching for information. I want us to use the Boolean operators or Boolean logic in searching. It makes searching easy. So this morning, I'm going to put a topic together. Let's say change management among librarians, University of Ghana. I'm a librarian, so change management among librarians. And then I want to search for literature. I can use the Boolean operators in linking or joining my keywords. We use Boolean operators in linking or joining keywords. And then there are normal and, or, and not. But they do not mean the same as in the English language. If I take the operator and, for instance, if I say Kofi and Amma, okay, and then if I take operator or, I can say Kofi or Amma, and then if I take the operator not, I can say Kofi not Amma. So this morning in my illustration here, I've used two sets, set A for cat and then set B for dog. Okay, so let's say I'm looking for articles on cat and dog. If we look at what I have here for operator and, if I'm looking for cat and dog, you realize that the intersection has been painted or is colored. It means that it's going to retrieve, or I'm going to retrieve only articles that contain the two keywords. So it means I'm going to retrieve just a few articles. Any article that doesn't contain cat and at the same time contain dog will not be retrieved. That's why I was saying it's not like a regular English and, because in English, if I say and, Kofi and Amma, it means the two of them. But this time, it would only retrieve for me articles that contain the two concepts or the two keywords. So cat and dog, it will give me only articles that contain cat and dog. And then you realize that at the end of the day, you are going to retrieve just a few articles. You retrieve just a few articles. I gave another example here, information technology and education. So it will retrieve for me only articles containing information technology and education. And please let's note, in writing or in typing in the query, the and, that's the operator and, should always be in capitals. It should be in capital letters. So capital A-N-D, so information technology and education. And we are going to retrieve just a few articles. If the article doesn't contain both concepts or both keywords, it will not be retrieved in our system. We'll give more practical for our next session. And then we have the operator or. The operator or would rather give us a lot of information, because I'm saying that I want articles on cat or I want articles on dog. So you realize that if there are 100 articles, so far as cat is mentioned, it will be retrieved. So far as dog is mentioned, it will be retrieved. So we can use the operator or in beginning our search, because with or we are going to retrieve so much information, and then you come down to use and to kind of try and limit what you have retrieved, because sometimes you can retrieve over, let's say, 200 articles. You can't read everything. So you use and to at least narrow down or limit what you would retrieve. So like I said, operator or helps us retrieve or locate a large number of articles. If we are using it in searching in our databases, it's going to give us any article that talks about or that contains any of our keywords. So like I said, change management among librarians. If the article is even talking about change management among, let's say, teachers, it will pop up. If it's talking about libraries and maybe change management, it will pop up. Any keyword you have typed in will pop up, because that enlarges or gives us a wide range of results. And then we have the operator not. The operator not also limits or delimits the information we retrieve. It means I want information containing only one keyword. So I can say cat, not dog. And you realize that that also narrows our search. So it's going to give me materials only on cat. That is the part I have shaded, only on cat. So anything containing dog will not be retrieved. That's also a way of narrowing our searches so that we can narrow down to exactly what we are looking for, especially when you retrieve so much information and then you want to narrow down to the specifics. Then you use the operators and, or, and not. So these are three Boolean, they are operators that help us in searching. You're able to link your keywords to retrieve exactly what you need to help you in your literature review. And then if you have questions, please note them. When the time is almost done, we would pick some questions. Okay, so now we've been able to search. We have retrieved, let's say, 20 articles. You need to go ahead and evaluate them, check for credibility, check who is writing the articles. Sometimes you use articles, sometimes you can't even find who is writing, but at least because you need to cite, you should look out for credible sources, credible information sources. You can also check the credentials of the author, the publishing house. And then sometimes you can just check with the content. As example, you know, let's say there are 31 days, let's say, in a month, in a particular month, but this article is saying, let's say there are 25. That's a clear evidence that there's something wrong with the paper. So you don't include such in your studies. So you try to evaluate the sources, and then you try to build up your themes. You look out for your debates, your gaps, etc. Like I said, these things will emanate from your objectives, what you want to look out for. So it means you have to read, and then you build or you identify your themes, your sub-themes, etc. And with this, I would want to talk about you having something we call a literature map. A literature map. I tried putting one together. Let me just share quickly, and then we can continue from there. I said we are looking at change management for this morning. I can just get my themes together. So I'd want to look at what change management is. So I look at the concept of change, and then you come down to look at organizational change. And then you can have reasons for change, and then types of change that occur in the organization. And then you go down to approaches to change management, for instance. And then you come down also to look at some models. So I've looked at Coates' 8 steps to change management, and then we have Jake's 10-step model. And then at the end of the day, you can discuss the model. This can go further, and then further to your specific area. So let's say the topic I put together was change management amongst librarians. So I can go further till I reach change management among librarians. So when you're able to establish your themes, it helps you in your literature review. It makes what you are talking about systematic. You're able to put your ideas out systematically. And then it also helps you identify the gaps so that you'll be able to fill in with your study. It helps you identify your gaps. And then I have an extended model or an extended version of the literature map I'm talking about. This one is looking at the concept of change, and then we look at organizational change. Then I look at the reasons for organizational change, which is going to be a subtopic of organizational change, and then the types. And then I come down to look at approaches, okay? And then I, just like I talked about Coates' 8 steps, I come out and I outline them. And then we have Jake's 10 steps. I can outline that as well, so that when I'm writing, I know, okay, after talking about the types of organizational change, I'm going down to another topic, which is going to be approaches. And then under my approaches, I'm going to a subtopic, which is going to talk about the models. And then under my models, I'm going to talk about Coates' 8 step, and then you talk about Jake's 10 step. So through the literature or reading your literature, you'll be able to even discuss the models. And then a discussion of your models will definitely bring some conflicting ideas among the models you would discuss. And that gives the researcher the opportunity to put in his or her voice. You would realize that some are also talking about virtually the same thing. And then it gives you also the opportunity to bring in your views. So like I said, let's have theoretical reviews as well. When it comes to writing your literature review, let's not do just the narratives. Let's not write a study by Donko looked at the importance of change management in organizations, and they use quantitative methods. Let's not just write it. Let's try and critique what we are reading. It gives us a firm grasp of the subject area, and it helps you also to position your study very well. So if you're able to read literature, if you're able to read the materials you come across, you realize you'll be able to form or develop your themes, which would help you in arguing your points out. So I'm going to pause the share, and then we go back to our slides. Okay, please, if we have any questions, for now, I think I can pick it whilst I get myself sorted out. If there are any questions.
Okay, Doc. Thank you so far. I want to find out. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you, please.
Okay. Doc, I want to find out if these Boolean operators, if
Yeah.
they do work on all search engines, or they are limited to particular engines.
Okay. They do work on all search engines. Yes, I'm sure if you explore them, you would come across them, but they do work. They work on virtually every search engine I have come across so far. Just a minute.
Hello, Doc.
Yes, please. Ajua, I can see a hand up. Yes, please.
This Mabel.
Oh, okay,
I,
maybe.
I want
Please go
to
ahead.
find out like these illustrations that you just did.
Yeah.
When you are writing your literature review, can you just put up these illustrations with your explanations, or this is just to guide you?
Okay. And please, you can put them in. It makes your work also exciting. And it helps whoever is reading to know what you are talking about.
Okay.
So please,
Okay.
yes, yes. You can put in a literature map. It outlines your themes for you. It outlines whatever you want to do. It tells your, let's say, your reader, okay, this is what the person is going to be talking about. So please, you can include them in your write-ups.
Hello.
I think Ajua's hand is up.
Yes. Hello, Doc.
Yes, please.
Okay. So thanks so much. I'm learning quite a lot.
Thank
I had a bit. I don't know whether I missed something. I
Okay.
had something about earlier when you were saying that when you are doing the literature review, you don't critique the work that you are reviewing. You are basically picking information.
Okay.
But then I think when you were doing the map, I also heard something about critiquing it. Do
Yeah.
we critique or we don't critique at the literature review stage?
Okay, all right. Thank you for your question. I was talking about the traditional or the narrative review. Most often we just provide information. It's kind of informative, not critiquing.
Okay.
But I would suggest that as students, for you to even be able to add on your views, you should do an integrative review. That's why I was saying you are synthesizing, you are providing summaries, you are critiquing. And then you can even do the historical overview, because whatever concept you are talking about, you should at least let people know, let your readers know how that concept has evolved over the years. And even some of the debates and arguments that caused some changes in the concept.
Okay.
So we should do the integrative review because it gives you the opportunity of adding on,
Thank you very much.
yes, to what has already been said in the discourse. So please, are we okay? So let's say, continuing from where I left off.
Hello, Doc.
Yes, please.
I think somebody has a question in the chat.
In the chat. Okay. Let me see.
He's asking if it is concerning the Boolean, if it
If
is
it's
necessary
necessary to put them in inverted commas.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but I'll say yes. If you are using them with the alphabet, sometimes it gives you whatever you are looking for. But at times too, you need to use the inverted commas so that you get exactly what you want. So in our next session, we'll do a practical class. That one will be able to explore all of these. You can use them capitalized. That's when you put the in caps, you'll be able to retrieve. And at times you can use the inverted commas to show exactly what you want so that you retrieve just what you want. And then it doesn't come up retrieving any other keywords for you. So that if I want let's say cat, not dog, then it means I'm getting only my materials on cat. Nothing about dog is going to pop up. So in our next session, we would illustrate more on how to use the Boolean operators in searching for information. Okay. So I hope I can continue. So after outlining your themes, and then you decide on the structure you want to use, like I have talked about, then you write the literature review itself. And then you should make sure whatever you are writing is coherent. They should flow. Okay, so like I said, the literature map is going to be very helpful. It will help you. I know I'm talking about the concept of change. After that, I go and talk about this. I go down to that. And then if I'm talking about my models, I'm discussing Jake's model, I'm discussing Cote's model. After that, I'm going to that or that. So having a literature map is quite helpful. It helps you write coherently. It helps you put your paragraphs together completely. Sometimes you have disjointed paragraphs. It doesn't help. And then we should also make use of transitional markers. These are linkages amongst the paragraphs. So say firstly, furthermore, they are all transitional markers. We'll look at them in future. And then we should be mindful of our tenses. We should be mindful of our tenses. Most often we have problems when it comes to the language we use in our literature review, especially with our supervisors. Let's be mindful of the tenses we are using, and let's stick to the tenses we choose to use. If it's past tense, you use your past tense. If you are using present past, whatever tense you decide to use, let's be mindful and then keep consistently with our tenses. And then we should provide citations for all the sources we use in our write-ups. Because if you don't do that, then it means you are committing a crime. So we should try as much as possible to acknowledge the sources we use. And then you provide a summary at the end of your write-up. And then you also have your reference list or your bibliography, which we are going to look at very soon. So these are basically the steps you go through in writing your literature review. And then if we don't have any questions, we just zoom into the ethics of writing, which I think is our second objective for this morning's session. Okay, that's our fourth objective, the ethics of writing. So what actually are ethics? Ethics looks at the right things to do, what is right, and what is acceptable or socially acceptable. So when it comes to even writing, there are some ethics we need to follow. There are some ethics we need to follow. And so we are going to look at some of these things. Like I was saying, you should be able to provide citations to the sources you need. We should acknowledge ideas, people's ideas. We shouldn't pass them off as ours. Okay, so that's what ethics of writing looks about, how we are going to avoid, most especially plagiarism, which is known as what? Intellectual crime. It's an intellectual crime if we go about passing off people's information as ours. And these days, there are laws protecting the rights of people. Because so far as somebody has written something, it is believed that it's their property, it's their intellectual property. So we can't go on passing them off as if we are bringing them up. And you know, there's nothing new under the sun anyway. Most of the ideas we have emanate from what we have read or listened to over the years. So we should do very well to provide citations to the materials we use. So therefore, as researchers, we should always pay attention and then we cite. And sometimes when you are citing, we don't really look out for the original document. It is allowed some way, but you keep doing that. It means you haven't really seen the document. So if you see something and you are interested in, try hard to find the original copy so that you can be able to provide a direct citation to it. And then I almost forgot, talking about photocopy, we know there's something called fair use. We can't go copying a whole book. It is not allowed. You just copy about 10%, which is allowed. So let's take note of these ethics when it comes to writing. And then I said, this is not merely an act of academic etiquette. A lack of citation also ends up in plagiarism, which we'll be looking at very soon. I can see some questions popping in. Yes, please. I'm recording it. I'm recording this session. So we'll share like we did last week, and then we'll share the slides as well. So let's not worry too much. Sorry, Patrick, for missing the literature map, but we'll share everything for you at the end of the session. Okay. So let's see what's happening. So we want to talk about plagiarism. What at all is plagiarism? These days, I think academia is worrying, if I can say, worrying students, worrying us on plagiarism. But like I said, if you don't provide citations, if you don't acknowledge the people from whose idea you are using, it becomes a crime. So plagiarism says you are stealing or you are passing off someone else's idea as yours. I go and then I read the definition of change management and I don't provide any citation. So it means I am given that definition, which is not true. But I can give, or I can cite, or I can quote from people, provide citations and references, and then I can give my own view of it. Thus, I can bring up my own definition for the concept. It is allowed. But to pass off someone else's idea as yours is not allowed. And then sometimes we come across a situation where we provide or we produce another person's material and then we don't give any credit to the person. That is also bad. And then we also pass off ideas as if they are original, as if we are bringing them up for the first time. That's also wrong. Whatever idea we use, we should be able to acknowledge whose idea it is. And then you see, the more you provide references, the more you provide citations to your literature review, most especially, it also tells that you have really studied the concept or the field. It tells that you have researched. It tells that you have read a lot. It's just unfortunate that some people also try pardon. Pardon means what they haven't even cited, what they haven't read from, they just add it to it to kind of increase the number of references they will have at the end of their discussions or at the end of their researches, which is also a crime. You just make sure you provide citations and references to the sources you have used. There's no need to pad so that your supervisor thinks you have read so much, meanwhile you haven't read. I've realized the time is almost up, and then I would want us to just hold on so that we are not interrupted. So when it comes to plagiarism, in case you have any questions so far, we are now going to delve deep, but I can see I have just about 9 minutes. So in case you want to talk about anything, please let's ask questions before we zoom into how to avoid plagiarism. I can see Patrick's hand is up. Patrick, please, can you go ahead with your question? Patrick, please go ahead with your question. Okay, I'm told you are not seeing my screen. It's still on the literature map. So sorry, so sorry, so sorry. Oh, sorry, so sorry, please. Thank you for drawing my attention, Festus. Please, can you see it now? Can you see my screen now?
Yes, please.
No.
No.
Oh, sorry. So are we together now? Okay, then let me just go back a little on what I was saying. I haven't gone too far. I was just talking about the ethics of writing. The fact that if you don't provide citations and references to your work, especially the literature review, that's where we pick a lot from people. If you don't do that, it's a crime. It's a crime. And plagiarism says you are either stealing or passing off people's ideas as yours. So you are not the one bringing up a new idea, but you put it there as if you are the one. So for instance, I'm providing a definition for change management. And then I define change management, but I don't provide the source. It means I'm trying to say I have developed that definition, but then it will be wrong. So it means I'm passing off somebody else's ideas as mine, but I can quote from an author, provide the source or the citation to it, and then also add my own view of the concept, which is acceptable. It doesn't mean that we should keep citing. When you do that too, we don't see the researcher. So I don't know if your supervisor or somebody has ever told you, I don't see you in the work. You need to also be seen. Your views need to be incorporated into the material or into the writing. Although you are citing from people, you are picking ideas. Yes, what are you also forming from those ideas? Your voice also needs to be heard. You can't keep citing. That itself is also going to even increase your index, your similarity index, you see. So yes, we should cite people, but it shouldn't be too much. I think there's feedback coming. Okay. So that was what I was talking about. You don't present an old idea as if it's yours. After all, there's nothing new under the sun. Whatever we have, it comes from what we have read already. So feel free to add your voice to your write-ups, but you should also acknowledge the sources you use along the line. You should acknowledge the sources that form your ideas. And I was saying that we should avoid padding. Padding means you adding, let's say, references you haven't read to your work. So in the body of your literature, you haven't cited, let's say, Donko 2020. But then in your references or your bibliography at the end of your work, you have Donko 2020. Do you get it? That means you are just trying to add up to your references to look as if you have read, but maybe you haven't read. So that is what we mean by padding. That is also a crime because you haven't used the material, you haven't read it, and then you add just to increase your reference list. That's also a crime. So let's do well to provide the sources. Okay, let's do well to provide the sources we use, and then we provide our references as well. Please, is my screen off the literature map now?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So sorry. Okay, great. All right, so if there are any other questions for plagiarism before our time runs up, please let's discuss, because I don't want to start and then we are kicked off. If there are any questions, we are hoping in the near future we'll be able to subscribe so that we wouldn't have these interruptions. If there are any questions, the floor is open, please. Yes, Mercy, please, I can see your hand. Please go ahead. Mercy, please go ahead. Hello, Mercy, please go ahead. Mercy, please, I can see your hand. Can you ask your question?
It's possible she's talking, but if she doesn't unmute.
I think she hasn't unmuted, yeah.
Hello, doll.
Yes, please.
Please, I'm asking if there is a limited, like a particular number of materials you are supposed to consult when conducting the research, or is open?
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mercy. It depends on what you are writing. For instance, if you are writing an article, you wouldn't have the luxury of space to review a lot of material or articles. But if it's a dissertation, it also depends on your institution. Because I know for, let's say, a long essay, that's a first degree, you have a limit to number of pages. For an MA, there's a limit for your work. For an MPhil, there's a limit. For a PhD, there's a limit. So it depends on your institution. And then it depends on what you are using it for. Because if it's an article for a journal, they will not have so much space for you to do a very lengthy literature review. So depending on what you need it for, yes, what you are using it for, that will determine the number of pages you would be able to make. Please, are we okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure. Welcome. We have just a minute to go, and then we refresh ourselves and come back. So please, if there's any other question, we can ask. Or I can ask a question.
Yes, you can.
Am I free to ask a question? Okay, so what's today's date? So what's today's date?
I think somebody is asking a question.
Please, someone is asking. Yes, you
Today
can.
is 17.
Okay, you can ask a question, please. I think someone is asking a question.
Mercy, I think you forgot to unmute or to mute yourself. Sorry.
Okay, okay, then let me mute if it's Mercy. All right. So we have less than 1 minute to go off. And then we'll come back on. If there's any other question, if there's anyone with a question, we can ask. Let's be interactive.
Hello, doll.
So we've talked about plagiarism. We want to see or learn how to avoid plagiarism. Sometimes it's so difficult avoiding it because we are reading. At times you would even write and your supervisor will ask you to provide a source. Most especially when you know you are putting the idea together, you are asked to provide a source. How are you going to go about it? It means you should go back, read and find out whose idea it was. And then so far as you are not the originator of the idea, you provide that reference. So how are we going to avoid plagiarism? We should make use of quotations. We should make use of quotations. If you are writing or quoting someone, especially when it comes to definitions, you should be able to put what you are writing in quotations. And then in case there's a quote within a quotation, you use the single quotation, not the double. And then we'll look at these when it comes to the practical session in our next class, how to quote and all that. And then you can also paraphrase. Paraphrasing means you try to write whatever you have read in your own words, not giving a different meaning from what the originator or the original author has said. So for instance, I read an article and it says, Kojo goes to school at, let's say, Winneba. I should be able to paraphrase, not changing the meaning of what I have read. So I can say Kojo attends school probably at Winneba, or Kojo attends Winneba, or Kojo schools at Winneba. We shouldn't change the meaning of what the original owner of the idea is saying. We should be able to paraphrase, so that sometimes you can just try hard to rewrite. Okay, so before you even start, you can do some note taking, which I'll talk about in some few slides. You can do some note taking. So as you are reading, you are jotting down your points, and then at the end of the day, you sit down and then you try to write whatever you have come across in your own words. And then you provide references. You do your in-text citations, and then at the end of your work, you provide your references. You provide a reference list, or you provide a bibliography. Sometimes we call it bibliography as well. And then you can use summaries. So like I was saying, when you are doing, let's say, the traditional or the narrative review, you are trying to summarize what the person has done, bringing out the objectives, the methodology, and all that. So you can summarize, but in doing so, you should also try, and then either you are going to provide a citation or a source, or you are going to paraphrase. Because if you summarize and you put it there in the author's own words, it means you are also plagiarizing. And then, like I said, you can quote, but you can't keep quoting. You are not supposed to use too many quotations. The best is to paraphrase. The best is to write in your own words, and then you provide your sources, or you provide citations to the ideas you are putting up. So when do we even how do I cite, or what is the essence of providing a citation? It tells your readers some part of the work is not yours. So like I said, whoever's work you are talking about, you should be able to provide credentials to the items you are using. And then providing a citation helps your readers to also locate the material if they want to read further. So let's say I give a definition of change management by quota. I provide quotas credentials. We'll look at that so that my readers can go ahead and read if they want to look for the material. So that's another reason why we provide references, or we provide citations. So if I'm providing a citation, what do I need? You need the information on the author. And then there are various styles. So depending on the citation style or the referencing style, you would have to arrange your work in that manner. But basically, you need the author's name, and most especially for your in-text citation, you need the surname. And then you also need the company publishing the material, so that if it's, let's say, a journal, what publishing house, what journal is it? Maybe the particular journal you are getting the material from, you need to provide the details. That's the company name. And then you also need the page number from where you are borrowing the information. You need the page number where you are picking, so that, like I said, if your reader wants to go back, he or she should be able to locate the information you are talking about. He or she should be able to find it. Sometimes, yes, you go back to the internet and it's pulled down. That happens. But then you should be able to provide credentials to the source you are using. And then we are looking at why we cite. We are citing to avoid plagiarism. You are citing to give credit to the original author. Like I said, someone has sat down to bring their own ideas. They have thought of something. They own the right to that literacy. They own the right to that material. So if you are using it, you should acknowledge, or you should provide some credits. You should give credit to the original author of the material. And then providing citations and references also helps readers to locate the material. And as I said earlier on, it shows the amount of research you have done. It shows that, yes, this person has really delved into literature and is bringing out ideas from what has been studied. And then with that, you're also able to identify your gaps, and then your research fills in. So when do I cite? You cite whenever you borrow words. You cite whenever you use a quotation. You cite whenever you paraphrase, or when you even express an idea. Somebody, you read a particular article and you get an idea from it. You should be able to credit that idea to the owner. And then you should, whenever you make specific reference to someone's work, you also need to cite, because like I said, it's not coming from you. You are not the originator of the idea, so you need to provide references. And then in citing, let's say I want to cite Donko 2020. How I provide my in-text citation tells how important that article is to my work. If you realize, sometimes we can say according to Donko 2020, or I can decide to write out whatever I want to say or whatever I borrowed from Donko, and then I put my citation at the end in parentheses. It gives a meaning. If you use, let's say, according to Donko 2020, if you provide the citation first, it means that material is of essence to your idea. So you realize we use that most often when we are giving definitions. So that if I'm using a definition, or I'm giving a definition, let's say of change management, I should be able to write that, let's say Quota 2010 defines change management as. It means that that idea is paramount or is of importance to me in my work. But I can decide to also cite it only as a minor point. So I write whatever I want to write, and then at the end of my writing, in parentheses, that's in brackets, I provide the reference or the citation. So these are the two major ways in which you cite, and whichever way you use determines how valuable or how important that information is to your idea or to your ideas. I'm seeing some questions here. Sometimes you paraphrase and it becomes somebody else's work. Yes, that's what I'm saying. There's nothing new under the sun. You think you are even thinking about something new, but before you realize, someone else has it already. So whatever it is, you should be able to provide citations, provide the sources from which you are developing your ideas from. And then is there a difference between using the manual citation and then the software? Yes, there's a big difference. I mean, the softwares make the citation quite easy. And then we'll look at using softwares. That's the reference management softwares that we'll look at in our next session. That will be our third masterclass. So we'll look at that. But before we even look at the softwares, we also look at how to do the manual referencing, because I've realized that sometimes you need to do a little editing when it comes to the softwares, because each institution has a particular way of doing their citation and their referencing. For instance, if you take Harvard, what is in Mendeley is a little different from what, let's say, UNISA uses. So anytime you are using, though it will make your work easy, you need to know manually so that you'll be able to do those changes to be in conformity with what your institution needs. So in our next class, in our next session, we'll look at the reference management softwares. Yes, please, like I have already stated, we'll share the videos and then we'll share the slides. Please, the slides will be shared. You would have them, so don't worry. And then I want us to look at referencing. When it comes to referencing, it is you arranging the sources you have used in your write-up. You arrange the sources, and most often that is done at the end of the write-up. You do that at the end of the write-up. Baden, I can see your hand up, so please let me just give you the opportunity, and then we continue with referencing. So Emmanuel, Baden,
Okay.
you can ask your
Yes.
questions.
Look, I was actually going to wait for question time, but I realized you started answering from the chat. That's why
Yeah, yes, I
I
see.
raised my hand. Yeah. I wanted to find out about when you cite a work, okay, and then along the line,
Yeah.
along the line, you want to revisit that statement. Must you recite it again, or you can just paraphrase it without giving the source?
Okay. I would say to be on the safer side. If you are paraphrasing, that's okay. That means if you are going to bring in your voice, you can do away with it. But if you are going to use the same writing or the same arrangement, that's if you are going to, let's say, quote, then you have to provide a reference. You have to cite the source. You need
Once
to.
you've already done it, probably
Yes.
elsewhere.
Yes, elsewhere, yes. So let's say maybe my introduction to my research, I probably talk about the definition of quota for change management. If I get to literature review and I'm talking about it again, it's in another chapter, I'll have to provide reference to it.
Okay.
You need to cite, yes, you need to cite. If not, it will be picked up by your plagiarism software.
Okay.
Run your work through any software, Eternity or whatever, to be picked up.
Thank you.
All right, welcome. So like I was saying, we are going to look at referencing, which is almost getting to the end of our session for today. Providing the reference is just a list of all the materials you have used. So if I have written a research and I used 50 materials, 50 sources, information sources, it could be books, journals, it could be anything. If I have used them, I need to provide the details. And then this also, like I said, every institution, there are several referencing styles. There are several, but in our next session, we'll look at APA, we'll look at MLA, and probably Harvard. And then any other, if we want us to look at IEEE, I don't know if there are any science biased researchers amongst us, we can look at IEEE. But I know the common ones are APA, MLA, Harvard, and then we'll look at them manually and then how to do them using the reference management software. So if I want to write a bibliography or I want to compile my reference list, what do I need? You would need the author's name. You would need the author's name. The title of the work, would need the publisher of the work, would need, let's say, the date of publication, and then the pages on which you have copied the work. And so I would want to do a little demonstration on that. If not, let's have it at the back of our minds. Let's just picture a book, for instance, a textbook. If you have any textbook around you, I just want us to be able to identify the bibliographic information we would need for our reference list. And then we have different parts of a book. We have different parts of the book. I know we would be able to identify the cover page, the spine of a book and all that. Let me just use my video so that we can see exactly what I'm talking about. I have a textbook here. I can just use that for the demonstration. Okay, so I have a textbook here. And then I just want us to be able to identify our bibliographic information that will be needed for our referencing. You know, this is your cover page. If you want information about a book, especially, you do not need the cover page. If it's a book, you wouldn't need the cover page because most often you won't find the full details of the book on the cover page. You'd rather go to the title page. And if I talk about the title page is the page on which you find the title, you find the author's name, and then you find the publisher. So you realize this book, for instance, you can find the title up there, and then you find the author's name, and then you can locate the publisher. So this is where you would get your information from when it comes to a book. This is what we call the title page. And then if you want the date of publication, you go to the verso. The verso is also known as the page behind the title page. So this is my title page. This is the verso, the page behind the title page. And most often it's in C with a circle. The date is in C with a circle. So if you want to provide your references for a book, you need the information on the title page and then the verso or the page behind the title page. Don't use the spine. This is the spine. We don't get the information from the spine, most especially if it's a long title. Sometimes you realize that some part of the title is truncated, so you wouldn't get everything from there. The best place is to get your information from the title page. So like I said, you need the author's name, the title of the work, the publisher, date of publication, and then the relevant pages. If you pick information from page 3, you need to indicate that you picked your information from page 3. So for the sake of a stable internet, I'll put off my video again and then we continue. And then you need to arrange your list alphabetically. That's the reference list. And then it also depends on the referencing style you are using. Some styles will require that you indent. Some styles will also require that you don't indent. Some will require that when it comes to formatting, you wouldn't leave any spacing. When we come to our practical class in our next session, we'll look at those as well. Okay, so I think this brings me to the end of today's session. So this looks at our next session, which will be coming off somewhere in October. I hope to relay the information to you as soon as possible so that we can start planning towards it. We'll be looking at how to search for information. We'll use the Boolean logic again. We'll demonstrate it properly. And then we'll look at how to search from some databases, the various databases we have around. And then we'll look at referencing and citation. We'll look at the manual referencing, manual citations for APA, MLA, and then Harvard. So we'll look at how to cite, if it's how to cite, if it's a journal, we'll try, and then we'll look at all of that. And I think we are getting feedback from someone. Okay. And then we'll look at some reference management softwares. I know we have the free versions and then some that have been institutionalized. So we'll look at Mendeley. But when we send the Google forms out, there will be option to also choose if maybe your institution has an EndNote, then we'll take you through, but we'll take you through the free one, which is a Mendeley, so that everybody can make good use of it. So that will be in our next session. These are a few references I have provided here, though they are not exhaustive. And this is the book I just used for my demonstration. It's a book I put together some years back with a colleague, but I think it would help you very well when it comes to writing It has discussed how to search for information. It discusses the Boolean logic, the use of transitions, writing your paragraphs, and it also has a referencing and citation in there. We discussed various types of referencing styles. So if you lay your hands on one, it will be to your advantage. And this another book I put together with a number of colleagues, Effective Citing and Referencing. It deals with only citation and references, the various types of the referencing styles we have. So thank you very much for joining this morning's class. It's been interactive and I have enjoyed myself. I would give
People
you
are
the
asking about the book.
opportunity to ask questions.
Okay.
I'll give you opportunity to ask questions. So let's feel free. And then this time I can put on my video and everyone else can put on their videos so that we can see each other. Okay. Someone says, Doc, could you please talk about a little on replication of research? Like I said, you see, research. Oh, there's someone.
This class and then.
Okay. Sorry about. Uh-oh. I think there's another person.
The subject and get it. Session one. Session one.
Okay. I think there's feedback coming from someone. Doris, I think your hand is up. But before then, someone was asking about replicating research. Yes, we can replicate. You see, sometimes you replicate even to find out if the situation has changed. So let's say I studied change management among libraries or librarians 5 years ago. I can decide to replicate the study to find out if the findings have changed, if the situation has changed. It could be, you could replicate research, just that sometimes, we always want to add up to the discourse. We want to add up. If we keep replicating, yes, we'll get new ideas, but we also want originality, especially if we are students. Your department or your institution would want you to add up to what already exists. So they might not want you to replicate totally. You can replicate some aspects, but at least there should be some originality in your work. And then I think there are other. Okay, people are asking about the book. If you want the book, unless you contact me personally, actually, yes, unless you contact me personally. Where it is will be very difficult. If you are close by Pentecost University, you can get a copy from there. That's where we use it most often, but you can contact me for any of them. So like I said, I'm going to put on my video so that I can see you guys. I want to see everybody. So please, let's see ourselves, and we are free to ask questions. I finished with my plenty talk for this morning. So please, let's ask questions. So if we have any questions, we can bring them up. Any questions, we can bring them up, and then
Hello, Doc.
yes, please.
Good afternoon. This is Martha. Please,
okay, Martha.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
You were talking about identifying gaps in the literature.
Yeah.
How can one identify a gap in the literature?
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. You see, let's say I'm conducting a study on, let's say, change management, which I've been using. You need to read. If you read from the literature, if you read what people have written, you realize that there's something that has not been studied. So let's say I download 10 articles on change management. One is looking at change management, let's say, among students. That's, let's say, change management in academia. change management in hospitals, let's say change management in hotel management, etc. I can come across, and then you realize that maybe no one has studied change management in hospitals. So it becomes a gap that needs to be filled. Sometimes too, you can look at the methods. You realize, okay, I have 10 articles on change management. They all used quantitative methods. You can ask yourself, can I use qualitative methods, or can I do a mixed method study? That also comes as a gap, so that you can justify your need or your use of, let's say, mixed method, to be the fact that when it comes to quantitative, it's respondents are so limited, but when it comes to qualitative, they have a lot of space to talk because it's an interview. So you realize at the end of the day, you get in-depth knowledge if you use the tool. So those are how you would identify gaps. Sometimes too, you can realize, especially when it comes to gender, you realize, okay, maybe use of mobile phones has been studied among males, but it has not been studied among females. So that's also a gap for you. Your study can fill that gap. Sometimes you can come across, let's say, the same mobile phones, and you can see, or from the literature, you realize it's been studied amongst adolescents. But there's no study of the use of mobile phones and, let's say, social media among the aged. That's also a gap your study can fill. So you can identify these gaps only when you read. You can identify these gaps when you read. You can identify gaps even for theories. For theories, you can identify gaps. Sometimes the variables, you realize a particular person is using, let's say, 5 variables, but you think there can be an added variable. That becomes a gap. And these gaps come together to form your originality. It means, yes, you are adding to knowledge, you are adding to discourse. So to be able to identify your gaps, you need to read. You need to read. And then as you read, you come out with so many gaps you can fill in. Are we okay?
Yes, I'm okay, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you too. So any other question? We have just about 10 minutes for this session to come down, but I have finished with what I want to share today. I think I'm seeing a question in the chat. Let me see. Is there a number of gaps to be identified in a particular study? It depends on you. Like I was saying, you can come across gaps when it comes to methods, the methods used, but don't pick too many things. If you pick too many things, to handling them might be a problem for you. But at least in your methods, you get a particular gap. Let's say, like I was talking about, you want to study the use of mobile phones by females. That's a gap, yes. And then you go ahead, you look for another gap when it comes to methods. You can get another gap when it comes to the use of theory, and I think it's okay for you. And those would be your objectives, the objectives you want to fill in. And then if you're able to review literature based on these themes you have outlined, you realize that when you get your findings at the end of the day, you'll be able to compare your findings because you would have everything you need in your literature. So don't have too many gaps to want to fill in one research, in one study. You can do that. And then there's even a space for future research. So you can identify these gaps, but then you do them gradually, and then you improve on the discourse, or you improve on knowledge in that particular field. So please, any more questions?
Hello, Doc.
Yes, please.
Martha again.
Okay, Martha, please.
I wanted to ask a question on the Boolean operators that you talked about.
Okay.
But I realized that in the later part of your delivery, you talked about the fact that the next section you give us a practical example on that one.
Yes. That
Okay.
session.
But I also like to
only practicals. Okay. Please, I'm listening.
I don't know whether you can add the other search engines apart from using Boolean operators.
Okay.
Whether you
Noted.
can also tackle on the other search engines as well, so that
Okay.
I think most of us are librarians, but not all of us too are librarians. So they can also get access to these things and then.
Yes, noted.
I also wish that you
organize.
I also wish you organize a practical one purely for librarians, so that it will help us in our as a professional. It will help us in our daily week.
Okay, sure. I'll take note.
Okay, thank you very much.
Take note of that. Thank you too. Please, Auntie Kathy, I've seen your hand up. Auntie Kathy, please, you may ask your question.
Doc, my question is, thank you so much. My question is on the in-text citation.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I have quoted you. So, Donko 2020, page 30 says this. Then I write it. Must I include it in the final bibliography?
Yes. So far as you've used, let's say, Donko 2020 for your in-text, it should be in your reference list. It should be in the bibliography. If it's not there, that's also a crime, because you have cited the person, but you haven't given any information on the material. So whatever you have in your in-text, that is going to form your reference list or your bibliography. That's why I was saying that let's not do the pardon. If you are pardoning, it means the materials are in your bibliography, but they are not in the text, the main body of the literature. That is pardon. Are we okay?
Okay.
Yes. So whatever you use for in-text, make sure you provide it in your reference list. Please go ahead with the question.
Okay. Please, if your theoretical framework is on a different chapter, must you include a little in your literature review? For instance, the empirical theories. You have a separate chapter for the theoretical framework.
Yeah.
And then in the literature review, your chapter 2, you want to mention few models that authors have used on the topic.
I would say that you can mention it briefly, but so far as chapter 3 is going to take care of your theories, then discuss it in chapter 3. But let's say before you provide a summary, you can just give a hint that your next chapter is going to talk about your theories, so that you devote that particular chapter for your theoretical reviews, and then you don't keep mixing up your ideas. So I would say keep it to the 3rd chapter if that is where it is, and then discuss the other concepts you want to discuss in the 2nd chapter. Please, are we okay? Pearl, please, I can see your hand is up. I can see your hand is up, please. If I can read your question here, it says,
Hello, yes, Doc.
Yes,
Doc, can you hear me?
Yes.
You said that with the literature review, we have to sometimes criticize and add our voice and stuff like that.
Yes.
I would like to know, do you?
Hello. Okay, what she was asking, what I can see Pearl has written here is, can you use personal pronouns? When it comes to academia, we don't really like the use of pronouns. So don't personalize it. Yes, just use
I believe
researcher. Yes.
I don't agree. Or you can just the argument and say it is